Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we're going to be going and talk about the PlayStation boss who is now criticizing PlayStation itself, and also a bit of Xbox too when it comes to the overall general idea and concept of exclusivity. Now, as I'm sure you guys probably know when it comes to games, there is a big console fight between everything. We have Nintendo with their exclusivities when it comes to Zelda, Mario, and a bunch of little various IPs. Xbox with Halo and Fable and Gears of War, Forzas, and obviously PlayStation with Horizon, Spider-Man, all those types of various games. And that's kind of, I think, a one really big selling point when it comes to most things is I want to buy this console to go and play Spider-Man or Horizon or God of War. And that's okay. I think at the end of the day, I think most of us realize that software sells consoles, and that's a high level okay. But when it comes to the future of gaming as a whole, we're now seeing a lot of really big kind of critiques and people judging the ideas of this. And I want to go talk about this because one of the bigger influential folks, Shawn Layden, if you guys don't know, is actually the ex-PlayStation boss. This guy used to literally run PlayStation, so this is basically Phil Spencer 10 years from now saying, hey, this is my take on the stuff. And this kind of is very intriguing because there's a lot of information that came out. This might be a lot of our weekend topics when it comes to this. So let's go talk about the fact that they're calling out pretty much PlayStation as a whole for basically striding so hard on exclusives, and I'm going to get my take on this too as well. I want to hear yours down below. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed. We'll probably be doing some drinking on stream. If you guys are bored, I'll link down below, probably live right now or really soon. And of course, we have the Weeble and all the other various links down below. And let's dive on into the video itself. So for some context, and I mentioned this before, is that we actually had a really big interview that came out over here with Shawn Layden. And now this is big because he went into a lot of various other topics. So we may make a few videos on this one, such as AI. But this one I think is the most relevant, mainly because in the news recently, Spider-Man 2 from the leaks, where they basically had to go and sell millions of copies to make the Marvel head honchos happy. That was a big drama and a big deal. So we saw that. And as well, we've also been seeing other big games that are absolutely big, massive flops, such as, let's say, Redfall. Well, they'll go and spend tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and they don't make that money back. And there's basically a big conversation and discourse about how gaming as a whole is almost in a big AAA bubble, where smaller games such as Helldivers or things like Pow World will explode because they're basically fun games on a smaller budget. They still have a budget of a few $1,000,000, don't get me wrong, but there are smaller games that have been developed for a while, but they're more focused on the fun factor, and we've been seeing the success off it. And while other games such as, say, Spider-Man still do well, they don't do as well as people are expecting. And this is where we go and coin the term a PlayStation bubble or a gaming AAA bubble, because you just can't always make a game that's worth $200 million. We even saw some of the bigger companies out there recently after seeing the failures or Suicide Squad, where they're just hey, we're probably just gonna be moving off of AAA games, to the point where companies are quite literally quitting because they can't handle the losses, or also layoffs throughout the entire gaming sphere, also affecting everything. So I want to say this ex-PlayStation boss has a little bit of merits, and let's go talk about it too, where he says he's going to discuss how exclusivity it could be hunting the game industry and why low profits may be a result of it. So the high level. Exclusivity on PlayStation 5 may hinder success in today's gaming industry due to high budgets and limited audiences, as noted by ex-PlayStation executive Shawn Layden. First level to that response, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more throughout the article. Yes, I think without a doubt, yes. Look at Ratchet & Clank. That game flopped. In my opinion, it was a good game. I played through it. I loved it. Very good game. Very good first impression of the PlayStation hardware. But no one had PlayStations at the time. The install base was so extremely small, and then people usually don't want to buy games as often. They still do, but they don't want to do it as often 6 months, a year, 2 years later. They may forget about it. They may want to have bigger and better, greater things, or they just might think it's too expensive, think some Zelda games are still $70. I would agree. And then as well, Layden suggests that focusing on multi-platform releases for high-budget games can lead to an increased revenue and mitigation the risk of financial losses. Agreed. Why not go release it on Steam within the first 6 months or a year, get a lot more profit, even if you want to keep exclusivity? Why not release various mid-tier games on, say, Nintendo Switch too as well? Why not? After a year or so, kind of how Xbox is doing. Why not release everything on every console? We were debating that with Indiana Jones and Xbox. It makes sense. And then PlayStation's shift towards releasing exclusives on PC, like with Helldivers 2, indicates a potential change in the strategy, which I want to go and focus on probably in a separate video, but I'll do it on this video too. Yes, please release things on PC, especially as technology gets better. Make them cross live service. I don't know the best word for it. It's cross-platform, but it's not really, it's just more PC. It's not really platform. You know what I mean? Anyway, so former PlayStation executive Shawn Layden has addressed his grievances about exclusivity on the PS5 and shared why it doesn't sit right with the modern-day game industry. where budgets are ballooning and layoffs are rampant. Banking on exclusivity is a key part of PlayStation's strategy for outperforming its rivals, Xbox and Nintendo. And across the current console generation, it has leveraged PlayStation exclusives such as God of War, Ragnarok, or Marvel Spider-Man 2 to reap notable commercial success. However, not everyone who has worked for the console giant seems to be in favor of keeping games restricted. I'm more on the fan of make everything everywhere. Like, I can understand timed exclusivity for games, say like for Spider-Man 2, but do you guys realize how many sales they'd get if they release Spider-Man 2 on PC? Huge. Imagine they release it on Xbox 2 as well. Huge. Now, at the same time, they do have very complicated contracts where they essentially want to go and make a bunch of sales to drive consoles. Like, it's a win-win. And they also want to make sure that, say, Marvel is happy. And I think they had like a 6 million target they had to go hit. But once again, what happens when they don't hit that? And that's where I think this is where this loosey-goosiness would go good. So imagine you had Marvel and you only have to sell 6 million copies on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. You would get that probably in the first few days. Easily, versus like a few months, depending on how some of these games work. Or some games like, say, Final Fantasy. I'm sure a lot of people on Xbox or PC would like to play it. Now, they do have these staggered releases, which I think is an intentional plan because it makes sense. Like, you go and sell, if you want to get the game early, PlayStation. People will want to play the fun game. They get the FOMO. They see people playing it on TikTok or YouTube videos, Let's Plays. They like the series when they were a kid. Whatever it might be, they want to do it. But at the end of the day, it's not always there. So I want to talk about this a little bit more because it's intriguing. It's intriguing concepts because I do agree there is a AAA bubble. Because if you have that one game that costs $300 million, well, then guess what? What if it only makes 50 and then you just lost $250 million? That's not something a lot of game companies or even companies in the entire planet can randomly handle. Because it's just a lot of money. Like, for example, Bungie itself was bought for around $3 billion. So imagine them losing $250 million. That could be detrimental to the entire company. That could be massive layoffs, which we've seen in PlayStation. And we've also seen big issues already. And these games are still doing relatively well. Like, Spider-Man hit its sales target. So in an interview with VentureBeat, Sean Layden, the executive of ex-chief at Sony Interactive Entertainment, Worldwide Studios, suggested exclusivity is more of a problem than a perk. He said, when your costs for a game exceed $200 million, exclusivity is your Achilles heel. Layden highlighted how exclusivity works against free-to-play and live service games by limiting the audience, which limits their revenue. Further, he underlined the success of PlayStation's newest live service game, Helldivers, which is true. Like, look at how insane Helldivers is, and almost all of my friends are playing that on PC. I am playing that and streaming that on PC. If you want to check it out and stream, we'll probably be streaming throughout the day, so follow if you guys want. But when it comes to other stuff, it's true. Like, think about free-to-play games, like a Fortnite. Think like a Rocket League. Think like, I don't know, League of Legends. Whatever it might be, most people will want to play the free-to-play game. Because not everyone could always afford a $70 game for just a pure single-player experience. Now, I'm not saying Spider-Man should be free because it costs money to make, but it's also something to consider that you are, once again, going and competing against freemium games, but as well also anyone who has a PlayStation and then anyone who has the $70 to buy the game. Like, it's a lot of layers working against you versus, let's say, like, Rocket League. If you have a PC, you have an Xbox, you have a PlayStation, you can play it. So it's free. You just download it, check it out. It's good. It's in. You're already in. And those are the people you almost want to rope in. Like, you want to make sure people are playing your games. So while Layden admitted his exclusivity hurts single-player games on a comparatively smaller scale, he justified his stance for more multi-platform launches in this category by bringing the budget into perspective. For single-player games, it's not the same exigency, but if you're spending $250 million, you want to be able to sell it to as many people as possible, even if it's just 10% more, and I agree, because don't forget that 10% more could drive millions of revenue, and that helps you go and maintain your game, maintain future games, and also makes it look better for the shareholders too as well, which is sometimes the end goal. And why and how PlayStation may be altering its approach, which was kind of a win. A big draw for PlayStation was, say, Spider-Man 2, built on a budget of over $300 million. God of War Ragnarok landed after around $200 million was spent on its development. Clearly, the budget of tentpole AAA games is consistently increasing, making it even harder to generate a profit. Consequently, releasing games exclusivity on a single platform becomes a risky move. In the worst-case scenario, underperforming sales can force the developers to cut costs, leading to a layoff wave similar to one that was currently ravaging the industry. So basically, it's saying, do we want to lay these people off? No. So make sure your games are going to be profitable. This is almost more so protecting the game industry rather than trying to drive profits. It's more so hey, this is unsustainable. Because if you have you have 5 flop games over, let's say, a 5-year period, you're out $1 billion, and that can completely put a lot of companies very much in the red or very much hurting bad. So despite focusing on exclusivity for years, it seems like PlayStation might finally be budging, which is nice. This is what should happen. If the past few years are anything to go by, So basically, if you're saying like, hey, Horizon Zero Dawn and all these other various games coming to PC, that is a win. Though it takes 3 years for the game to come, and then obviously Horizon Forbidden West was around 2 years, that's still better. Like, I still think a 1-year period is probably the best. It's kind of like the industry standard, but it does seem like in the future, and even with Helldivers, it seems like PlayStation may be switching its tone and being a little bit more open to PC and being a little bit open to maybe other console exclusivities. And at the same time, I do agree very heavily that we're in a really big AAA gaming bubble because games are too expensive, and if you flop on a few, you might be completely out of the game sphere. So I want to hear your thoughts because I do think this is really smart takes by Sean Layden, the ex-PlayStation boss, and I do agree. Like, this is something that, like, I think PlayStation's riding on. If it fails, the entire company can crumble. So make sure you guys are subscribed with notifications on. Swing by the Twitch and follow if you guys want, or subscribe here. And of course, I love you guys all so much. Thank you guys for watching.